What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Season Gaming Bitcast, episode 257, and on time, as always, every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern prompt. I am your host, Ainsley Bowden. We got a big show today, a lot of big topics to talk about. We've got, obviously, Microsoft and the whole Activision-Blizzard details, and even just, 20 minutes ago, Philly Spence, our good friend Philly Spence, talking about keeping Call of Duty on PlayStation. We've got a Bungie lawsuit to talk about. We've got Black Panther. We've got Remnant 2. We've got a whole bunch of things. And we've got the worst game that Travis has reviewed in quite some time, actually. Yeah, which is saying something.
But
yeah,
that's
a lot. That's saying something. So it should be a good one. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Good to see you with this fabulous panel here. So the rather extra sharply, extra dapper man this morning, Mr. Tie Guy Travis. How we doing?
I'm doing well. McClunky, everyone. It's nice to see everybody this morning. I'm coming off of an all-nighter. I did not sleep last night, which is why I'm still dressed like I was yesterday. But I finished my upcoming review that's going to go live on Thursday. Yeah, that day. Sure. I'm sure that's true. But my deadline is tomorrow, so I wanted to get it done early because I got stuff going on today. So yeah. But
I like to think with that set of facts that you worked all night and you're dressed like you were yesterday, that you just always dress in a suit coat vest to write reviews of video games.
That is 100% accurate. This is what I looked like yesterday when I did not appear on camera and I was typing a lot. So yeah,
I like it. That's commitment.
Yeah, I can barely be bothered to wear pants.
Only clothes I own.
We have no proof that Dan ever wears pants on the show.
There is none.
And I have not asked for any.
Yeah.
Do we have proof any of us wear pants on this show? To be fair?
Probably every time. No, because my camera, I was going to say every time my camera freezes, I stand up, but you can't see it because my camera's frozen. So it doesn't
That's
really
why I think Ains is Donald Ducking right now, if I'm being honest.
Back with us a little bit late today, but he's here. He's here. The mic's working. The camera's working. I am very proud to say the host of Virtual Legality is back. And obviously our number one Raymond fan, Mr. Hoeglaw. How we doing?
I do love Raymond.
Raymond.
I do. I'm good. We did Virtual Legality. People have been asking me to comment, obviously, on Microsoft times Activision, but also a lot of other things. And it's been quite a trick to figure out how to make virtual legalities with the current setup that I have and with my current position in rehabilitation. And so figuring all that out and getting a video out this week was a really big step. It might not feel a lot different to folks on the outside. Hopefully, that's the idea. But it was a really big step for me internally. And then being able to replicate it and do a second video a couple days later is really good feeling. I'm not 100% happy with my output yet or where things are at, but I may never be. But I am happy that we got videos out on this, and it's obviously been a really big week in the news.
Yeah, and it was great to see so many people, throw it up. I saw the response to you getting that video out and how many people interacted with it, and it's awesome to see. So, good job, man. Great to see you back. Back. I use some quotes, but at least producing the videos, so it's awesome. And of course, the man, the myth, the seven himself, Mr. Rodriguez. How we doing, brother?
I'm here. I made it on time, so I'm good. That's all I can say.
You keep expectations low, and then
I really do. Yeah, don't expect much.
Fair enough. So, we've got like I said, a lot to talk about today. We will, of course, be getting to the details that Rick broke down in his videos regarding the news this week about Microsoft, beating the FTC in court, the appeal getting denied, of course, of the injunction. And, of course, like I said, just like 30 minutes ago, Phil Spencer announcing that they have signed a deal with PlayStation to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation. And a bunch of details around that. But of course, before we get into all of that, we've got some games to talk about. So we've got quite a few things to talk about today in terms of what we're playing. But first, before we get to the other games we've been playing, of course, I need Travis to talk to us about, real quick, as we're talking about Testament and you talk about your review for this, I just want to ask you real quick. Do you want to replace one of your 6 games on Keeley's Game of the Year awards for Testament? Because I'll allow you to do that.
I think I will pass.
Okay, just checking.
Offer, but I don't think it's going to make it personally. I don't know. Really, just a really crowded year, you know. A lot of
I mean, I heard it got some 9s.
It did. I did look up that review, and interestingly, that 9 is not a Metacritic score, so I think it might be somebody's just like personal, you know.
I think it was just a blog site.
A blog
score.
post.
Yeah.
But it does appear to be a review of the company that made the game, not the actual game itself. It's mostly references to the company and their personal struggles. And I mean, that's great. If I were reviewing the studio itself, I'd probably be a very different article, but that's not what I do. So yeah, I can talk about Testament.
Yes.
Testament was a game I had heard nothing about. I was offered to review it, and I immediately said yes, because that's what I do.
Travis, can you help me out for a little bit?
Sure.
How does a game like that I'd never heard of either get picked for IGN review? Like, how does that happen?
That got picked for an IGN review because it performed well, and that tends to be what we go off of. We go off of, does there seem to be interest around a game?
On like trailer clicks and things?
Trailers and that sort of thing. And it seemed like a lot of people were watching the trailer, which I actually looked at during my review process to go, okay, how did this actually get attention? And I noticed it was one of those trailers that never show more than 1 second of gameplay before jumping to a new shot. And I was like, oh, okay, I get what happened. But yeah, it did like trailer fairly well. Yeah, I did not know anything about it and played it. And what starts out as like a pretty bad, you know, lower budget feeling kind of fantasy game quickly becomes really bad as you are forced to play it for 40 hours, and it progressively gets worse. It has some really just god-awful combat design where you like a lot of the enemies are invincible unless you take out your bow and you shoot an invisible eyeball that's over their head. But first you have to go into detective mode in combat, scan the eyeball while you're getting hit by people, and then take out your bow and shoot the eyeball while you're dodging and getting hit and interrupted by enemies that are attacking you. And then on top of that, they add these darkness zones where you constantly take damage and have all of your magic drained until you go and hunt for 4 eyeballs that are also invisible throughout the world while you're getting attacked by enemies during that process. So it's just like, you know, like, hey, let's make a super frustrating experience for the player and then like make them do it over and over again for 40 hours with no breaks.
Nice.
Well, there are breaks. There's puzzle sections, which are actually the one part of the game where I was like, okay, this actually isn't bad. Like, you know, you solve a puzzle, you jump around, but it, you know, there's nothing special about those puzzle sections. It's mostly just that you're relieved that you're not going through any more of the combat. And then, you know, it has other problems on top of it. I assume it was not made by an English speaking developer. They spell their own game's name wrong multiple times throughout the game. They, you know, lots of misspelled lines and weird voice acting that I'm like, I don't know who this is made for. And yeah, you know, I played it over like a weekend and some change, and it was, I think it was the long weekend. No, that was 1-2 Switch. I'm getting my horrible.
It just felt long.
Wrong. It felt long. It felt really long. Yeah. So there's nothing especially bad about that game except for the bugs. Actually, the bugs are pretty bad in that game. Where you can see developer objects. That's in my review. Sometimes you'll just see like a chessboard like gate that was supposed to, you know, where they cut off certain areas of the arena, like you walk in and the door closes behind you. They had like those effects visible a lot of the time. I saw it like 4 or 5 times every couple hours. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. But yeah, you know, it's unfortunate. It never doesn't bring me any joy to you know, say a game is bad, but that's the gig. You got to do that for people that maybe would have made a decision that they would have regretted and bought the game and not really understood what they were getting themselves into. And so now anybody who buys it, at least they'll know what I think of the game and what I think they're getting themselves into. And, you know, that's it. That's the game.
And as always, you can do with Travis's opinion what you will.
True.
Yeah, but he went through this pain, so you don't have to.
It is a U.S. developer, though.
I'm trying. What's that?
It is a developer from the U.S. They are
That is very surprising.
Yeah, Fairy Tale or Fairy Ship Games. I just looked it up.
Actually, you
Very
know what? I won't say that's surprising. America, I think one of the great things about it is that we don't have a national language, and so they still could be non-English speaking, and that would be
That's
very
true.
American
That's true.
of them to do that. So
Mo and Joe Naderi are the people that started that studio. So
There you go.
well,
And you gave the game what score?
I gave it a 2 out of
Nice.
10, which is painful, and I was driven to that score because it was a painful experience for me to get through that game. And part of it was that the game offers like a lot of optional stuff for you to pursue, and because it seems like it was a part of the game that they were pretty proud of, like lots of like loading screens telling you like, hey, did you know you can do this? And they kind of pitch the game as like a Metroidvania where you go back and you discover other stuff. For that reason, I did kind of a completionist playthrough. Like I did all of the major side quests and stuff. Like I played all the content, wondering if like, there was going to be like a crazy end game where stuff really opened up. And instead that made it like significantly worse, because a lot of the side content, they just make you fight a different colored version of the same boss you fought like an hour ago. And it's just, it's a wreck, man. It's pretty, it's pretty gruesome. So you should not play Testament. The Order of High Human. Yeah.
Testament, The Order of High Human. I saw someone in chat asking what game you're talking about again. So there you go.
Well, Testament, The Order of High Human. It is a fantasy action adventure game that just has a couple. It's very ambitious. I think probably more ambitious than they had the bandwidth to make good. That studio, I don't really know anything about the studio, but I'll just say that what they ended up producing is a bunch of bad ideas that they pad out for 40 hours, and when taken in totality, it's pretty grating. So
yeah,
that's that game.
Which, funny enough, we got into it back and forth a little bit on Twitter, not you and I, but just a conversation overall, because the blog that gave it a 9 commented on the team's size that made the game, and what you and I pointed out almost immediately, because I tagged you in it, because I know we've discussed it before, is the team size does not matter when it comes to a review. Should not matter at all. The quality of the game is the quality of the game.
It certainly doesn't.
One person or thousands.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't impact the quality of the game. I think that is a pretty objective conclusion to draw. But I think possibly that reviewer, if they're even a reviewer, is a professional reviewer. I'm not trying to insult them, but like if they are a professional reviewer, is they may have fallen prey to like the reviewer guide. So for those who don't know, sometimes the developer or publisher will send what's called a review guide to the people that they give codes for, or codes to. And the guide usually includes like some helpful tips and some bugs that they know are in the game that are already being like patched out, and some other stuff. And sometimes it allows them to just tell you more about the game. Testament, The Order of High Human, spent a lot of their review guide reminding the reader that they are a 15-person team and that they were really ambitious. And it even included references to the fact that they didn't accomplish what they'd set out to do. So I do not think that the developers are surprised by the reviews they got from like most outlets.
Which we often say, right? Developers know what their game is. They play. I mean, they're very aware of what they're producing.
They play their game a lot, and I think the game got a certain reaction from people who previewed the game, and it did get preview coverage because of the interest in the trailers. My coworker Leanna is the one who previewed it, and it was a pretty negative preview. And so I think the studio probably knew what they were in for, and they just wanted to get their idea out there because they'd worked on it for as long as they did, and maybe were eager to move on to another project or what have you. But you can kind of tell the lack of confidence from the review guide. And I think possibly, maybe they were trying to generate empathy, or maybe they were just being open and honest, and it caused a certain reaction by some people who read it and felt that empathy. And for the record, I have empathy for small developers that have development challenges. It's just, you have to set that aside when you're a reviewer, because your obligation for a review is to the consumer, to the person making the purchasing decision, and to the consumer, it does not matter. And that's the gig. But I think some rookie reviewers probably would fall prey to that kind of trap and allow it to impact their review. And I think it was clear from the review you're referencing that gave it a 9 out of 10, because includes lots and lots of references to the developer and their situation. And I think that's all good and well, but I would not call that a review of the game.
Agreed 100%. So, well, interesting, man. You knocked about another game less than 5. So hats off to you. Hopefully we will talk shortly here about a far different experience. Hopefully.
I hope so. I hope the game I'm currently reviewing is better.
I wanted to ask Hoeg, or anyone for that matter, if you've played any more Synapse, however you want to pronounce it. Because I didn't get a chance this week.
You say synapse like that because I've always said synapse.
I also said synapse. Yeah.
Synapse.
It's interesting. I have played more of it, and I had family in town, and they got a chance to play it, and they said it was one of their favorite VR experiences. And I tend to agree. I think it's a kind of killer app type product. I think it's really an excellent VR game.
Yeah, I need to get back to it. I just didn't this week. I was tied up with other things, and I'm looking forward to diving more into it. But the more I see people play it, the more superlatives seem to be kind of getting thrown around it, which is great to see. So cool. What else you guys been up to? Game wise,
Final Fantasy side quests.
Okay.
Nice.
It's probably not a surprise to anyone that's played a Final Fantasy before, but it kind of opens up and gives you a lot of stuff to do right before the end. And the way I tend to play Final Fantasy is I plow right through to the conclusion of the storyline and see the credits, and then I go back and do that kind of end game stuff right before you finish the game. And that's what I've been doing this week. And there's a lot more of it than I thought. Like they just dump quests on you right at the
very end. Yeah.
And so I've been doing that a lot.
They dump a bunch of side quests on you right at the end of the game.
Right.
Yeah. So you basically know in a Final Fantasy where the button is to say, yeah, let's take this home. And right before that, they dump, I don't know, 36 side quests on you.
36?
There was probably about 15 or 20 at least. Yeah, I mean,
are they meaningful?
I like all the sub quests in the game. I mean, I know you've seen that talked about online, but even though the economy in Final Fantasy is pretty much broken, like you don't care about getting the materials, you don't care about opening chests, and that could 100% be improved. The subquests do a good job of continuing to world build and character build when you don't always have the chance to do that in a single character action adventure game. I think they do a good job with that. And if I'm playing Final Fantasy, generally speaking, it's for the lore, it's for the story, it's for the narrative, it's for the music, but it's not for the economy or the builds. And I don't think they mastered that. I think they could have improved that. I wish they had, but I've enjoyed the subquests. There's just a ton of them.
There's a ton.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dan, you in the same spot?
Some of them, especially towards the end, will start giving you materials to get that last, big weapon that you want. So,
That's true.
There's also hunts. A lot of those open up too at the very end.
I'm including the hunts on my list of subquests, but
when that's the case, he's probably right. Probably about 36. There's so many. But I think they're all good. I mean, meaningful. It depends on, not towards really accomplishing your end goal, but like he said, like world building, it does a really good job with that.
Okay.
A lot of fun characters, little stories that kind of come, because you go throughout the game and there's side quests that pop up every once in a while, and then this kind of concludes a lot of those side quests at the very end pop up. And there's you open up like a new area right around then too that had quite a few of them that but yeah, they were all, I mean, I want to say they're all good. Like the first when I first started doing the side quests, they seemed really, really fetchy, and that's what they all were.
You just don't like delivering soup.
Oh God, you did that twice.
You did do that twice.
Yeah, twice. You had to deliver soup at a restaurant or whatever, that little bar that they have. But that was really early in the beginning, and I was like, man, this is what it's going to be. This is kind of garbage. But the further you go on, the more it opens up, the more in depth the side quests become, the more the characters kind of open up. So they did a far better job than I thought they originally. The direction they were going at the beginning, I was like, yikes, this is going to be rough.
It's very much a game made by the people that made Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah.
Like to the extent that I don't even think you would have known if you hadn't played it, that it really is 14 made into a single player game with better graphics, but it's got a lot of the sensibilities of 14, including kind of this slow roll build that you put enough words behind characters that you're going to care about them at the end. And I think to some extent they're right, but a lot of the criticism,
that's kind of the I was going to say that's kind of the takeaway I got from why am I forgetting the game? The JRPG you still haven't finished.
Testament.
No.
Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Xenoblade Chronicles. Yeah, that was kind of my impression of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is that they have a lot of like kind of cliched characters, but they write so much for them that the volume by the end, you're like, I mean, I've been on a journey with you, even if I kind of hate you as a character. You're my friend. You know what I mean? We're buddies. It's kind of I feel that way about people in real life. Yeah.
Well, I think they achieved that, and you could tell it's not been my problem. That's too strong for Final Fantasy 14. But especially without voice in 14 for a lot of the stuff that they do, they write a lot. Like even for simple stuff, which is ultimately going to be, I need some chocobo feathers or whatever. It's going to be 4 paragraphs on the current state of the weather, 3 paragraphs on how they feel about the weather and their current situation, 2 paragraphs on what a chocobo is and why the feathers will help, and then the directive to go get the feathers. Yeah. And it's like, that's going to bother some people, but it's well written. And it does give you a feeling towards the end when the side quests that I'm doing are essentially, as Dan says, the culmination of kind of 3 or 4 side quests with any given character peppered throughout the whole entirety of the game. And now you're finishing up what they care about the most, that you wind up feeling something for these digital creations. And I think they do a good job of it.
I think those that replaced for me, the lack of that party system, right? The lack of having that interaction with those characters. This is, I think, what they want. Yeah,
I don't think it achieves it 100%.
Yeah, I don't think no. You're right, 100%. And but at least it's something there. Like there's a couple of them that I remember that they kind of hit a little bit harder. I was like, okay, this is that was a nice way to end that, and I'm glad they did. I think I got them all done as far as I can tell.
So how many hours do you guys have into this now?
Well, I don't think that their hour timer is great, like on the PlayStation main screen. Sure. So it's been at 61 hours for like 3 weeks.
I'm probably close to that. Maybe 70 is probably what I put into a total.
Okay.
But that was a lot of, that's completion, like everything done.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm wrapping it up, and I'm because you lock in your gains to go into the Final Fantasy mode, the new game plus. I'm trying to get all that done before I start that process.
Mm-hmm.
Get the fancy sword with the ridiculously rare metal, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I know we talked a little bit about it last week too, but that's good. It seems to be a game that quite a few people enjoyed. I find myself probably in the minority there of what I've played so far, but I don't think I got far enough to really kind of experience it either. So that's partly my fault, but that's okay.
I think if you're not into it by the time they drop the title, I don't know that it's going to win you over because it's another dozen hours before things cook up again. Yeah,
I'm like I said, I think I'm 4 or 5 hours or so past that, and it didn't grab me at all. But that's fine, no big deal. I mean, for God's sakes, I'm back. I got back on my From Software bullshit this week. I was watching some videos on Elden Ring, and I was like, oh man, what game haven't I played in their catalog recently? So I loaded up Bloodborne. I was playing Bloodborne for a little while yesterday. And I don't know. I'm right back into it. I just, me. I love this game to death. So.
I've also been, I should say, trying to get to the end of the campaign in Diablo 4 because I'm told I have to beat that before season 1 starts.
Yeah,
so I've been putting time in on Diablo 4. That game is amazing. I love that game.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And then I popped my head in because I was on the Xbox where I'm playing Diablo when EXO Primal came out on the Game Pass. I had no idea what that was other than dinosaurs falling from the sky. And I pretty quickly popped out when it was apparent that it's a multiplayer competitive cooperative thing.
It's PvE/PvP all in one type of thing. Yeah.
It's funny, right? You've seen trailers for a game. You don't quite know what it is, but you have a suspicion that it's something like an Earth Defense Force game. That's not.
What I thought. Yeah.
And then they do like an intro, which is clearly a shell for like a live services game where they're showing you like the different suits. And you go, that seems a lot like Overwatch. Then you get in and you're like, yeah, this is an Overwatch design. And I had no idea at all.
Yeah.
I'm learning just
interesting.
now. That's that game. So I also
played,
thought
like-
oh yeah, this is
I'm
like
sorry.
Earth Defense Force, and it's probably going to be like super campy, like Pacific Rim vibe. That's kind of my thinking.
Yeah, I haven't played enough to really speak intelligently on it. I played it in the demo briefly, and then I've obviously seen a bunch of friends trying it out and stuff. From what I hear, and anyone in the chat can correct us here, but it's relatively decent from a gameplay perspective, but the PvP kind of ruins it for some people. They really don't like that implementation of it. So I don't know. I haven't played it enough to speak to it, but
yeah, no, I only went through the tutorial and said, nope, that's not what I thought it was.
Fair enough. Funny enough, Sard Anisms asked me in the chat if I find, and Travis, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this too, but if you find From Software games relaxing, like can you chill out and play a FromSoft game? And I said, actually, yes. Because for me, one of the things I love about those games is the world and how you can just explore the world freely at will and kind of take things at your own pace. So I play those games very methodically. I will go enemy to enemy, kill them one by one at a pace, and just explore every inch of the world. And to me, I love that. So even though obviously boss battles or certain things can be tough, right? And those can get tense. Generally speaking, when I'm playing the game, I'm chilled. They don't stress me out at all.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I think even if your home country is war torn, it's still home. You know, I mean, you still feel some comfort being home. You know what I'm saying? It's home. It's what you're used to.
I get what you're going for, kind of.
I will
I'm
say
saying-
that the FromSoft games, I've said this before, that they're too dark for me to enjoy for long periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
And to some extent, Diablo has that same problem, which is like, this is literally hell on earth. Are any of you people happy? Are there any
Probably
good
why I love
outcomes for any of you?
It's probably why I love it. I love dark stuff.
Yeah, it is very surreal to be expected to spend enormous amounts of time in Sanctuary, the literal worst universe that you could exist in. Like if you were like, I want to live in one universe of my choice, like that would be probably dead last on my list. Is like nothing good will ever happen to you if you live there.
Well,
I don't even know how humans have a viable population, to be honest.
Yeah, that's if I was going to criticize anything from a narrative perspective in Diablo 4, is that I don't think they do a great job of establishing what Lilith means to this world. Like you already are dealing with monsters around the fences and things, but you haven't established the break of like, how much worse is this than you alive?
They left it. The sad thing is they left it out of
ambiguous.
The game itself. It's in the lore videos leading up to the game. They talk in detail about how many humans have been killed, where the humans come from, what Lilith and Nanarius, their background, and it's all in those lore videos that Blizzard published. But it's one of those situations which we've talked about. Halo does that too, right? Where there's all this extensive lore and background and things that they don't do the best job of portraying directly within the gameplay experience. So if you're not familiar with all those extra kind of additional things outside of the game itself, you kind of lose it a little bit.
Yeah, because you're just there when all the action starts, which is good. That's where you generally want to start a story. But there isn't this kind of notion of, well, now we have more problems than we used to. Everybody seems to be in huts, unhappy. And yeah, I want to save the world, but is the world worth saving in Diablo? I have no idea.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, why don't we jump over to Remnant 2 before we get to these super chats, because then we'll obviously jump over to the big topics we're going to talk about. By the way, before I do that, nearly 600 people in the watching us live right now across both channels. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We are getting to the bigger topics, but as always, I joke that I suck at this. I need Hoeg to be the promoter because he does it much better than I do. But if you're enjoying what you like here, if you're enjoying the conversations, help us out. You know what to do. We don't have to recite everything, but we just appreciate you hanging out with us and sharing it out. So thank you. All right, Travis, we so I know you have been playing Remnant 2. We can't talk fully. The review embargo is obviously not up, but we can talk a few early impressions. I'm not reviewing it personally. Elu, who's in the chat, is reviewing it for Season Gaming, but I know that you have completed it.
I've completed my review, in fact.
I was going to say
your review, and you also did the preview for IGN a couple months ago.
I
as
did
an
IGN first. So yeah, I went to Gunfire Games' studio in Austin, Texas, and hung out with their team for a while. So yeah, I've got. I can't give a full review, but I can give early impressions, which I'm told is maybe the first couple hours of what I experienced and that sort of stuff, and kind of give you an idea of what the game is like. So far, kind of the early stuff that I'm allowed to talk about is that it is one of those games that immediately feels like a sequel, like Assassin's Creed 2 or Borderlands 2, where you get in there and you're like, okay, I get it. So that first game that they made, which was kind of a very enjoyable first draft, this is what that game looks like when they have had time to like really develop the concept and respond to the feedback on the first game, and probably have a bigger budget and a bigger team behind it to fully realize some of their ideas. And that ends up being quite a good first couple of hours, which I'm putting it that way because I'm trying to limit it to the first couple of hours in case you couldn't tell. So for those who don't know, Remnant is a looter shooter Souls-like that sort of puts you into it's kind of like a Outriders type of game if you played that, where you're running around third person action, you've got a gun, you've got some abilities and that sort of stuff, and also you can play with a group if you want, or by yourself, and kind of the premise is that you are an interdimensional multiverse traveler who goes to different realms, and you're trying to stop a great disaster, a race of evil trees that is trying to take over the multiverse. This lead that is
it's
that
not
is
wrong.
correct.
That description is right, but it's like, yeah, it's handled a little less glibly.
It is handled a little less glibly, and also I believe the root, if you play the first one, is supposed to be a metaphor for a computer code, like maybe we're living in the Matrix and the root code, if for those who follow or those who are technically minded. I think there's some sort of Matrix like a parallel there. Basically there are evil trees who are trying to take over the multiverse, and the way that this becomes interesting to the player is that you get to travel to different realms that have completely different vibes. So in the first game you go to you start off in like a post-apocalyptic Earth, and then you go to like a place called Yesha that has got like a jungle vibe and that sort of stuff, and you kind of just jet set around the multiverse and get to
biomes are fun, kids.
Biomes are fun, yeah, because they make the game feel very different. The second one ups this tremendously. In fact, the opening hours of the game are some of the most exciting, because after you complete the tutorial, the first realm that you are teleported to is random. There are 3 different possibilities, and of those 3 possibilities, there are 2 different storylines in each of the 3 realms. And so, the first couple hours of the game, you could tell your friend, I'm on a sci-fi planet fighting robots, and I'm trying to find these cores to restart a computer. And somebody else could be like, what? I'm playing Bloodborne. I'm in a fantasy world with elves walking down a British street and, fighting chimney sweeping fools. And there's just all
why the British got to be chimney sweepers. What's wrong?
I mean, if you saw them, you'd be like, yeah, they sweep some chimneys. At the very least, they dabble in some chimney sweeping. These guys, the bowler hats, snaggletooth. You get the idea.
Hey.
So no, I'm talking about the enemy. The enemies in the game. I'm not talking about you personally, although you fit the bill. And so it's really interesting. Like, it's a very kind of interesting water cooler game where you could talk to your friend, and even if you got the same world, which myself and Mark Medina, we ended up in the same world, we were fighting different bosses and stuff. So he'd be like, have you fought this guy? And I'd be like, I don't know who you're talking about. What's that?
That's awesome.
That's one of the coolest parts of the original Remnant, is that it had all these kind of splits.
Yep. And I would say the second one doubles down on that in a major way. Like, it's so different that even if you end up in the same world, you could be doing a completely different storyline with different characters, and then the final boss fight in that world is also completely different. And the way that another reason that is cool for the player is that you can re-roll any world you have completed the storyline on to see what else is out there, to play the other version of the storyline, because each world has 2 main ones, and to get some of the side quests that didn't roll in your world, and that it's procedurally generated, so you kind of end up with like a hodgepodge of random stuff in your playthrough. The opening hours leave a very strong impression. It is very fun to play. There are a surprising number of secrets to discover. One of the things that happened to me in the opening hours of the game is I ended up in an Indiana Jones-like temple, complete with leap of faith and penitent man must yield type trials I had to go through. There's just cool stuff like that they throw in the game, that secrets that you wouldn't have found, puzzles that are surprisingly challenging, and other stuff like that. And so, I mean, it has been a very interesting game to review.
Yeah, I will say that Elu, like I said, he's reviewing it for us and is in our chat on the SG side here. He sent me a list of kind of things about it to talk about, but you pretty much echoed everything you just said. He said that, from a first to second game perspective, this feels more fully realized. The shooting is tighter. The character development is stronger. Character building, I should say, more nuanced, he said, and personable. Level design is amazing and so much randomization. So everything you pretty much just commented on. So there are a few people in the chat asking about a couple questions I saw in the chat. One, is it coming to Game Pass? No, it's not. It is not a Game Pass game.
Not yet. I mean, the devs' goal is to bring it to as many people as they can, and I think they know that it popped off on Game Pass, but I don't. It's not going to be soon.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit, Travis. I don't know if that's just for me.
He's going through a tunnel. Yeah.
Apologies. Apologies.
But yes, not on launch anyway, not on Game Pass. Do you have, what would you say to this, Travis? Do you have to have played the first game to enjoy the second game?
Definitely not. I would consider.
The answer to that is yes, but
what's that?
I said I can't imagine the answer to that is yes, having played.
Yeah,
it, just because
that is not true at all. And in fact, the sequel is sort of a soft reboot. They reintroduce you to all of the characters from the first game. They put you back into Ward 13 in different shoes. But yeah, it is definitely a hard no on that one. And yeah, I don't think you'll be missing out on much context.
Okay. It releases July 25th. There is
I would like to correct that. It releases on the 21st.
Can you let me finish my sentence? You didn't even let me finish my sentence. July 25th, unless, to your point, I'm gonna use the word you love so much. On July 21st, it releases in early access if you buy the Ultimate Edition.
This is why I interrupted you, because you saying it's being released on the 25th is false. It is being released on the 21st, and they are lying about that and trying to get you to pay more money. So yes. It's on the 21st. And then I also saw somebody asked when the review drops. The review drops at 7 a.m. Pacific on July 20th, which is the day before the game comes out.
Thursday.
On the 25th. So that's on Thursday morning. My review is written, and now I just got to go through, video editing and that sort of stuff. And we'll have it on IGN.com right when embargo drops. I don't know if Ains is going to get there because I know you guys got the review late.
We will.
Awesome. Great.
Yeah, we'll hit embargo. And by the way, the game is $49.99. So it is, it's not a $70 game either. So from the early impressions you guys are giving, hopefully the game continues, that level of quality and interest through the entire experience. And that sounds like it could be a big winner. It is current gen only. So PC, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, just by the way, in case you were wondering.
Yep. Somebody also unrelated asked me if I'm reviewing My Friendly Neighborhood. I'm not. I did a preview of it. I played the first couple hours and enjoyed it. I'm not sure if IGN is doing a review on that one. It really just depends on how much interest things like the trailer and the preview that I did generate. Like if people care about the games, we'll try to review them, but I'm not sure about that one.
That July 21st is a hell of a day. That's Oppenheimer, Barbie, Pikmin.
Yeah, it's a big day.
I have tickets for Oppenheimer. I'm excited. Remnant 2. And then doesn't Immortals of Avium come out like a few days later as well?
It got pushed, right? So it's not in July
did it get pushed?
Anymore.
Am I forgetting? Okay.
Yeah, Immortals got pushed, but I don't remember to where.
September,
sorry, Immortals.
Maybe? Okay. Fair enough. But that's probably good given what we're talking about here. So, well, cool. Excited. So obviously look for reviews, Travis's review and Elu's review this week. And we'll talk more about that next week when we can talk about it fully. So.
That sounds awesome.
Excited to talk about
like
it fully.
Time Splitters vibes from Travis's description. I love this stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited to be able to talk about more. I have a ton more to say, and I'm I stayed up all night writing the review, so I'm just it's on the brain.
Yep, fair enough. All right, let's get to super chats before we jump over to Microsoft and the FTC. Some of the super chats are relating to that. Yeah, business news. So I will. I'll save the super chats relating to that for the conversation. But let's get to the other ones now. Googleman coming in before the show, as always, with his weekly $5 super chat.
Yeah, the randomness. I love Googleman.
€5 super chat.
Yeah, €5. Yeah. The Space Emperor in Foundation Season 2, Episode 1 is very yellow.
He is very yellow. You're right.
That's just Lee Pace. That's how he looks.
Yeah, is it bronzer or a high-tech nano mesh? We'll never know. Marutai Ramen Bonsai. All right. That's it. Yeah.
Fair enough, Googleman. Fair enough. Thank you, sir.
The tree
Always
or the
love-
attack plan? I have questions about the last statement. All right. Anyway, good.
Let me see. I've got a couple here. Here you go. Gecko Gamer in the house.
Gecko. I traded my Xbox Series S. Oh, sorry, the €6 Series S for a PS4 Pro, and I'm wondering which game should I get. I already have Final Fantasy VII Remake, Uncharted Trilogy, Horizon Zero Dawn. Man.
So
interesting trade.
Interesting trade. Yes.
Seems like a lateral move at best.
Well, if you don't have a PS4 or PS5, then it might.
If you've never played any of the games, too,
there's a lot there.
There's good ones to play. So obviously, God of War, I think, goes without saying. 2018, and then Ragnarok. If you want to play those, there's Ghost of Tsushima, which a lot of people love.
I love it when he doesn't like something. He's like, this is a game.
Some people like it.
A lot of people love it. I mean, I liked Ghost of Tsushima.
Awesome. I'd actually say the Spider-Mans before those, but yeah.
Spider-Man. Yeah, those two. Yeah. Sure. So I think, honestly, what I would recommend, Gecko, is PlayStation has done a good job with the PS Plus collection. I know some of that went away recently, but if you look at even subscribing for a month or two or a couple 3-month period, you could probably get through most of their big first-party stuff and really have a good time for hardly any money. So I would look into that. So, Gecko, thank you as always. Butterball.
Butterball with $5 super chat. Keep up the good work. Cheers from KC.
Cheers from Kansas City. Let's go, Butterball.
What are you talking about, buddy?
You're talking Dan and I's language here. You're local. Good to hear it. Thanks for tuning in today. Appreciate you.
And a profile picture of butter. I love it.
Or is that cheese? Is that cheese or butter? I can't tell, but
I don't know. I thought it was butter.
It could be butter.
I was giving credit.
Yeah, there you go. And a $2 super check from Buck.
Supporting the show. Thank you,
Just
Buck.
supporting the show.
Thank
you very much, Buck. Appreciate it. The other 3 super chats we're holding right now are related to this conversation that we'll get into. So I'll pull those up when it's time. But of course, the big news this week and been covered kind of all over the place, but covered best, of course, by Mr. Hoeg here on Virtual Legality. So I'll set up the tea here, and you can kind of kick us off, Hoeg. But essentially, everyone knows that FTC lost its case to get the injunction against Microsoft to stop them from finishing on the acquisition of Activision-Blizzard. There was an appeal process which went to the Ninth Circuit Court, which was also denied on the injunction as of Friday, I believe. That happened.
It's over here.
Are you cheering for your court circuit, Travis?
I am cheering for my court circuit. I'm proud of the Ninth Circuit. I don't have to tell you.
If there's anything local to Travis, he's cheering it on. Except for Scoop Bagels.
I mean, there's a lot I don't like, but come on, Ninth Circuit, they're goated. They're in the news all the time.
The Ninth Circuit is the most overturned circuit in the Supreme Court's history.
It's true. Bring it on. I don't count that as a negative. Let's go.
So I think obviously the focus moved back to CMA at that point. Brad Smith put out a formal statement on Friday, I believe, as well, after the appeal was denied around next steps there. And so I think the big question, Hoeg, is that a lot of the audience is asking, who may not be as well versed on these things, is okay, so it looks like they are set to move forward from a United States perspective. Where does the CMA's kind of hold play into this, and what does it mean from the overall picture?
Yeah, so let's take a step backwards just real quickly, because I think this all relates to the actual injunction denial. So the FTC brings its case against Microsoft, trying to hold the deal back, saying that if the deal is allowed, it will violate American antitrust law, that it will substantially lessen competition in various markets. They lose on that because, frankly, they presented an awful case. And the judge has a 53-page opinion about why that case was awful, including an absolute evisceration of an economist that we haven't seen since all the way back in Epic versus Apple, where the judge hated all the economists. But after that denial, they appeal it. Ninth Circuit takes a quick look at the emergency request, says, nah, you don't get this emergency request. That appeal is technically still on the books. They didn't deny everything, so there's still an appeal motion pending, but you can't really appeal for a successful preliminary injunction after the thing that you're trying to enjoin has happened, so it doesn't matter much. And the FTC is prohibited from preventing the deal from being consummated now and into the foreseeable future. Now, the actual agreement has an out date, a termination date of July 18th. So the expectation is that Microsoft and Activision are hustling to potentially try to get the deal done, I would say as early as tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right.
But that CMA question that started this all off is the important one, which is that the CMA, the Competition and Markets Authority of the United Kingdom, found the deal would hurt competition in the cloud market and blocked the deal. They say you can't have this deal and still operate in the United Kingdom. Now, importantly, although the CMA says they blocked it worldwide, folks, as important as these regulatory bodies are, as important as the government of whatever country you might find yourself is, it does not control all behavior around the world. And so even though the CMA says that they're blocking it worldwide, what they mean is if you actually go and put these two companies together, we're going to have real problems with you selling things into our jurisdiction, the United Kingdom. And so with the FTC not prohibited from blocking anymore after its failures in court, what you've got is a situation where Microsoft can spend near $70 billion, buy the shares from the Activision shareholders, and own Activision, but it couldn't operate in the United Kingdom without either a settlement with the CMA or at least some kind of understanding. And so what's really important about everything that happened this last week is not just that they beat the FTC. That's obviously important because if they lost, all of this would be falling apart. But that the same day, they agreed with the CMA to stop their appeals process. And why is that important? It's important because unless Microsoft is insane, or you believe Microsoft is insane, which I think is unwise, you wouldn't stop your appeals process unless you think that there's some possibility for a positive settlement with this regulatory agency that is otherwise stopping you from doing what you want to do. So that is strongly suggestive of at least a belief on the Microsoft side of things that there is some kind of change they can make to the deal that the CMA will allow, and that the CMA will then rescind its opposition to their transaction overall. Now, once Microsoft leaked that out to CNBC the same day, which is that CNBC comes out with this news report that says, we're hearing that a small divestiture might be happening and that the CMA will go for it. And it's like, well, that's really only a Microsoft leak. When you watch these things, you can try to figure out where the news is coming from. That's really only a leak from Microsoft. The CMA immediately responds to, I think, Tom Warren at The Verge the next morning and says, oh, that's well and good. We haven't agreed to anything. And if they change the structure of the deal, we'd have to re-review it. And it's like, well, yeah, all that's true. Nobody is lying about any of this stuff, but the reports are getting a little bit fast on what's happening and what's likely to happen. So what we think from the outside looking in is happening in the United Kingdom is that Microsoft has expressed a willingness to do something structurally for the CMA, who has blocked this on cloud market grounds, which is strongly suggestive of Microsoft agreeing to get rid of some of its cloud capability, specifically in the United Kingdom rather than around the world, and that the UK would go for it. Now, Microsoft is guessing on that. That's why this is happening. Microsoft thinks that they can pause and this will all work out. But when people ask me the question, can they close over the CMA? The answer is yes. They could just close this deal and figure it out later, but they're not likely to figure it out in a vacuum. You're not likely to just say, we close, sorry, CMA, we'll figure out fines and things later. Instead, they're in constant talks, they're in conversations, and what I would expect will happen is that Microsoft will try to close this week, and we'll have some kind of what I would usually consider a memorandum of understanding or a letter of intent with the CMA that says, look, you've got our structural deal in front of you. You have a feeling for whether this is going to be okay or not. We know that for your government and statutory reasons, you have to evaluate it with your commission and all these other things. We're not holding you to anything right now, but let us close. Don't fine us. And if you wind up needing more changes, we'll make them in good faith. Or if this is winds up being accepted by you, you won't retroactively try to fine us for whatever the interregnum period is between when we close this deal and when you finally agree that any structural changes we've proposed are acceptable. So you can generally, if everybody's being reasonable, talk and have letter agreements and say, okay, we'll suspend any problems right now because we agree that we're probably close, but we still have to go through some math on our side. And I suspect that'll happen. But the CMA has also, just like the FTC, proven to be a bit of a thorn in Microsoft's side on this and done things that are a little bit unexpected, right? I never would have expected them to even try to block the deal based on cloud markets in the middle period. And so Microsoft has to be at least a little skittish about working with an agency that has done things like that, has gone so far down the console road that even when they rescind it because all their math was wrong, they still hit you on cloud markets. And so they might delay. You're seeing certain reports that Microsoft and Activision might extend the date in their agreement. And that's always been the case as a possibility for the agreement. It's one of the reasons why when you hear people say, well, that July 18th date is so important, it's like, yes, it is important because Microsoft technically owes $3 billion to Activision if the deal doesn't go through and Activision just decides to hold them to the current transaction. But more likely, both sides would agree to an extension if it came down to it. Neither side really wants that because Activision wants its money and Microsoft wants the assets. But if the CMA won't give the kind of comfort that Microsoft needs, that they're close enough on this, Microsoft and Activision would extend probably for 30 days. Generally speaking, if I were in the room on this and somebody were asking me to do an amendment, the recommendation would be 30 days. So that's what I would amend to. July 18th becomes August 18th. I know that's not 30 days necessarily because of the length of July, but that's sure how we think about these things.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would expect to happen if this doesn't close on Monday or even Tuesday.
Hoeg, that was bravo, sir. That was a fantastic breakdown of the details. So appreciate that. A lot of people in the chat saying, you make it very easy to understand these kind of complex situations. So thank you for that.
I try.
That was going to be the next question. I saw a couple of people in chat asking about that. So what you're saying at the tail end there is it's very possible that if we don't see this closed by Tuesday, which is the current date, right, the 18th, as we're talking here today, you may be listening to this after, but there can be an extension which will take it out a certain number of days where they will continue to try and work with the CMA to alleviate any concerns the CMA has and therefore close fully on the deal without any kind of additional, well, we don't really know what would come of that, but additional kind of concerns from the UK side.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the deal or if you look at any other deal that you can see, the SEC keeps all public company deals available for you to check out if you're so inclined and you just need a nap. You can check out these contracts. And what happens is Microsoft isn't obliged to buy the company until it would be clean, right? Until there aren't regulatory issues, until it's happy with its due diligence. But if Microsoft doesn't buy the company by July 18th, they owe a breakup fee to Activision. And so both sides want to get it done. But in any contract, the sides to the contract can always agree to change the terms. That's the way this works, right? You agreed in the first instance. You can always agree to change what you agreed to. And so unlike a law, unlike a statute, you can say, yeah, our out date is July 18th, but we can sign up an amendment. It's actually pretty quick and say, okay, now it's August 18th. Where you once read July, now read August. And it's actually, it doesn't take a lot of lawyers' fees, certainly compared to the lawyers' fees everybody's spent already in the last 18 months. And it's not the biggest deal in the world. So that could definitely happen. But they'd all prefer to have it done this week.
So would we. So would we.
I mean, it's not going to be the end of it, right? Even if they officially close, I mean, the FTC is saying they're going to continue to challenge it. There's going to be other stuff, right?
Well, okay. So what's going to happen on the FTC side of things is now that they've lost their preliminary injunction and their emergency request, under the rules of federal regulations, the parties that have been opposed by the FTC can go request that it be dismissed. Now you're requesting that of the FTC, but basically you go and you say, look, your job is to hold for the public interest. All these federal courts have found that you're not in the public interest. Dismiss this because your opposition is not in the public interest. And for the most part, historically, the FTC has. You saw that most recently, they dismissed the Meta case after Meta says, hey, you lost your injunction request. Get out of here. And the FTC removed it. Now, the FTC is in a little bit more of the public eye on this deal than with Meta. So you might see stubbornness. You might see them just say, no, we're going through with this administrative action in August. But historically, what you would usually see here is Microsoft asks to have it dismissed, and the FTC says, yeah, we're dismissing it. So the FTC is mostly dead. The FTC is like Princess Bride, mostly dead, like lying on the bed, unable to move, but
For the
still a
pain.
little bit alive.
To the pain.
Yes, and that's Lena Khan saying to the pain. Yes, indeed.
Pain.
So we'll see. We'll see, but I would expect it to be dismissed.
You will keep your ears.
Sorry, we said Travis had a Princess Bride tangent.
Sorry, I literally referenced that movie in my review of Testament, actually. Testament. So,
anytime you can reference that movie is a good day, so it's fine. It works. That's good.
Continue, Hoeg.
So we've got a couple super chats that we can talk about relating to the deal now. Let's knock these out. I don't think anything we haven't answered, but anyway.
Excuse me. RC Polygons with $5 super chat. Jim finally signed the Call of Duty contract that should have been signed since day one. Jim Ryan did the right thing and signed the contract.
Yeah, so as we mentioned at the start of this, as we mentioned at the start of this, just before the show, Phil Spencer, now I don't know if we have any details yet as we've been talking, but Phil Spencer tweeted that they have, Microsoft and PlayStation have come to an agreement to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation into the future. That's all he said. It's very vague, but I guess we'll see what comes of that. But that happened an hour ago or an hour and a half ago.
Right. Well, it is vague, but I wouldn't recommend tweeting out your deal terms. So I think it's good. It's good vague.
yes. Fair enough. So thank you.
I don't know if there's enough characters for legalese. Into it. They're not very frugal with their character count on legal documents. I've found.
No doubt. Appreciate the super chat. We've got AI Democracy with last chance Sony will refuse COD or ABK games. I think we just answered that one, right? So I think
AI Democracy, terrifying phrase. Go on.
Sorry, Dan. I just went ahead and read it because we were just talking about this. $4.99 super chat from AI Democracy. Yeah, so I think we just answered that. I think Sony, we've talked, all of us in this space have talked about how big and important Call of Duty is. It's not everything about this deal, but it is obviously a big piece of the deal. So it's very clear that PlayStation knows how important Call of Duty is to its platform. So it seems like that has, they've come to terms on that piece at least. Thank you for the
money
super chat.
always wins, folks.
I saw your tweet about that, Hoeg. Yeah, it was like,
the last couple of days you might have seen, well, maybe Jim Ryan will pull Call of Duty from Sony. It's like, not if he doesn't want to get sued for violation of his fiduciary duties.
That'd be crazy.
Remember, management, board of directors, they are not the bosses of the company. The shareholders are the bosses. They own the company. Those folks that have the names that in the news and otherwise, they are fiduciaries of other people's money, and they can't just do what they like. It's not their own personal fiefdom. So Jim Ryan could hate Phil Spencer and want to see him dead. If it makes his company hundreds of millions of dollars, he better come to the table.
Unless the shareholders are the CEO of the company, which is sometimes true. or in Activision's case, all of the best friends of the CEO.
Well, I mean,
sycophants.
In a publicly traded company, you're going to have a broad group of investors of all kinds. In a closely traded company, you might have control within your friends group. You still have a duty to the investors, regardless of whether they're your friends or not. It's still not your money. That is this pool of money that you're making things with.
Yeah, it's true.
Fair enough.
True.
And then Doovie, $2 super chat.
Yeah, thoughts on Phil not saying 10-year contract?
I really don't think it was terms in that tweet. I expected it to look a lot like the deal that they rejected earlier, because Microsoft right now, especially with the CMA sitting out there and circling like Jaws, isn't in the position to go and play hardball with these negotiations. So they wanted to have this tweet go out there before the CMA's meeting tomorrow. There is a management meeting of the appeals tribunal tomorrow that is somewhat important towards the process in the United Kingdom. And they wanted this out there, and they don't want Sony to turn around and be able to say, yeah, they really bent us over something in order to get this done on Sunday, because Microsoft is continuing to try to look like the good guys and defenders of corporate America in the
reverse pufferfish, as I think we settled on before, right? The reverse pufferfish act that they're doing. Poor old Microsoft.
Yeah.
No, however will we survive, Microsoft?
Yeah.
How will we survive? And look at all the good we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you can definitely see that all the way from January.
But buddy, could you spare $69 billion? That's an interesting cardboard sign to read.
Yeah. I haven't seen that on the street, honestly. It's weird.
It's weird.
Doovie, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate you. So I think we caught up on everything there. So anything else, commentary on this specifically? I think you covered kind of what's next well, Hoeg. So any other commentary on this piece?
Only that the deal is going through. Like if it isn't clear, the CMA is out there, but the pause isn't just strongly suggestive that Microsoft thinks they're close. It's strongly suggestive that the CMA is not going to be the last bulwark to stop the deal. There is not political will for them to just be the only ones that are going to scuttle this $70 billion deal. And so I think it's going through. I suspect it's going through like tomorrow, but if it doesn't, it's going through in the next month or so.
Yeah, I tend to think the CMA was sort of blocking the deal with over genuinely felt concerns, but I think with the hope that there would be sort of a anti-acquisition alliance forming across multiple countries. And I think as soon as the domino of the United States fell, being the biggest market for Xbox, they were just like, all right, well, jig's up. We have no alliance. The anti-Activision merger NATO just collapsed. So that's the end of that. I kind of think that was their approach as well. So FTC decision is interesting domino to fall.
It's possible. I will never tell you that I can read their minds in any different direction. I don't think that cloud is a separate market, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they're just evil and are making up things in order to stop the Microsoft deal. They can think that it's an important market. It's just not going to be the kind of thing that's going to win in American antitrust law. And even if they have a stronger protection in the UK, it still looks like they're acting arbitrarily, which is a problem even for them when they put their document together and it's 90% console, which is what the FTC was focused on.
Yep.
And then they just dump it for, and cloud's a problem too. It's like, well, it's not very convincing.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
What do you say to the people who are picking apart, and some of whom are lawyers and I assume know at least something about the law, who are picking apart Judge Corley's decision for doing things like setting a higher barrier than some people think that she ought in terms of what would grant an injunction, and doing things like referencing the $3 billion fee that probably shouldn't have been considered since it was a self-inflicted and, as you pointed out earlier, easily changeable fee on their part. What do you say to people who are criticizing that stuff?
Well, I did talk about it in my second video this last week you saw a Reuters article that had a couple of professors talk about the word may appearing in the Clayton Act, which is to say that you're not allowed to acquire something which has an effect which may be substantially to lessen competition. And Judge Corley asked at this preliminary injunction stage for the FTC to have proved that it will probably substantially lessen competition. And the answer to that is that even those legal scholars, despite giving quotes to things like Reuters, understand that the antitrust laws written more than 100 years ago have been interpreted for 100 years of precedent as not being what they say. That's not ideal. That's not what I would have the law do. But both the Sherman Act, which says that contracts in restraint of trade are illegal, and the Clayton Act, which is what we're looking at right now, which says that it's illegal if your deal may substantially lessen competition or may lessen competition substantially. Those words can't be read at the breadth of we might read them in English, because then every possible contract or transaction could be blocked because it's illegal. Because may is huge. You may be hit by an asteroid on the way to work tomorrow. It's unlikely, but it's huge. May is not the standard. And in fact, we've got sentences in the precedent, which I call out in my video and on Twitter and otherwise, that say we can't read it as may literally. It can't be literal. It has to mean a likelihood of eventuality. And that's the reality there. Judge Corley has some things in there that I think you can argue. And I think the FTC did argue a couple of them well. But it's all harmless error if it doesn't change the outcome of the case. And ultimately, in deciding to grant or deny a preliminary injunction, that is a discretionary act of the district court. And a court of appeals has to find not only that the legal standard was wrong, but that it was so wrong that if it were done rightly, the court would have had to have found that the other direction, or it has to remand back to the court, which I think was what the FTC was aimed at, right? If it gets remanded, it's going to take a little extra time, and then we're going to fly past the July 18th date. But the FTC also found itself in trouble because they brought their administrative action at the end of last year, right? And they could have sued for an injunction at that point in time. That's what they usually do. The FTC usually goes and asks for an injunction and files their administrative action at the same time so they can stop the deal. They decided to wait on that. And the reason they decided to wait on that, at least as it appears to me, and as I said in my video from late last year, was that they knew that they didn't have a leg to stand on in federal court. The FTC doesn't get to write the laws. Congress wrote the laws. Congress gave the power to the FTC. Congress gave the power to the Department of Justice. And then they're supposed to go and bring cases when they think the laws are violated. But what the current FTC is doing is trying to advance a broader understanding of the antitrust laws that are currently on the books than the courts have accepted for 100 years. And that's why you see when Lena Khan's question in front of the House Judiciary Committee, why are you 0-4 in merger cases? It's like, well, we bring cases where we think there's been illegality, right? But it's not just the FTC that gets to decide where illegality is. You're supposed to, if you're being a good fiduciary of, in this case, the taxpayers' money, you're supposed to understand the precedents in front of you as a lawyer and say, well, this is a case that really bugs me. I really wish Microsoft couldn't buy Activision. But if we look at all these things around the deal, a court that's going to be evaluating this is going to say, no, that's not an antitrust concern. And maybe the antitrust laws need to be changed. You can advocate for that. You can run for Congress. You can do whatever you like. But you can't just enforce the laws you wish to exist in the way that you wish they were read to a different part of the government. And that's where the FTC is running into trouble.
Well said, sir. Yeah, very well said. All right. Well, I think, like I said, obviously, I think you gave a really nice breakdown just now, Hoeg. But Hoeg did get back, as we said at the top of the show, on his virtual legality series, where he breaks these things down even further and in more detail. So if you enjoy the details, if you want to know more about the specifics, be sure to check out his channel and his videos from this week. It's great to see you back at it, Hoeg. Seriously. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I'm certainly trying.
I'm so about it.
Jury is out.
Yeah.
By the way,
Hungary.
Hungary. By the way, nearly 800 concurrent hanging out with us right now. Absolutely amazing to see. In fact, I don't think we've hit
too many people.
I don't think we've hit that many since, Hoeg, you surprised us when you came back after your stroke and joined us mid-show, which, you know, when everyone kind of went nuts, which was still one of my favorite moments of recent times.
See that? See what Ains is
that
doing?
one's so hard for me to watch because I'm so slow.
I mean, you had a stroke, dude.
I mean, kind of a minor thing happened, you know?
It was something there. I mean,
so thank you all for hanging out with us. Hope you're enjoying the show. Funny enough, one other big kind of lawsuit that almost got overshadowed. I think the FTC stuff overshadowed almost everything this week in the gaming news, that is. But a big lawsuit, generally speaking, involving Bungie this week.
Yes.
And this was sent to us by Mad Geek, by the way. So shout out to Mad Geek. He responds to us and sends us some interesting topics here and there that he'd like to hear us talk about. But obviously with Hoeg, obviously with Travis being very close to Destiny and Bungie community, I thought I'd call this out, that if you didn't see this, essentially what happened, and feel free to, you know, go into detail here if you want to, but a defendant named Jesse James Comer was apparently incensed. I'm going off the quotes from an article here. When a community manager, I think this is a year or two ago, both Bungie and the court declined to name, of course, spotlighted some fan art by a Black community member. Using anonymous phone numbers, Comer left a string of hideous, bigoted voicemails on the community manager's personal phone, asking that Bungie create options in Destiny 2, which I don't even feel comfortable saying this, but this is from the case. Created options in Destiny 2 in which only persons of color would be killed, and then proceeded to threaten the community manager's wife with racist voicemails and texts. Bungie followed this through, obviously took this person to court and won this week. And the decision is that the person, the defendant, has to pay nearly $500,000 in damages. But what they're most excited about is that this, the lawyers spoke on this, hoping that this will begin to set a precedent for dealing with online harassment and in that space, because generally speaking, that's been a very tough thing to combat, legally, at least to this point. So I think I summarized the best of my ability there. any commentary on this, but I did feel this was important to call out and a big win for both Bungie and I think developers, anyone who faces online harassment. This was an important case.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things here, if I understand it correctly. One of which is this is a default judgment, which is essentially that the defendant didn't show up or present a case, which is fine. It's fine to have a default judgment. But what I will warn people about is if you love this, in general, the judiciary hates a default, right? We don't like to just award people things because the other side didn't show.
Because the other side didn't get to argue their case.
Because
right? It's not good precedent.
If he ever shows or decides to present a case on some reasonable timeline here, chances are the court's going to rescind all this and allow them to present their case. Now, we don't know whether that'll happen or not, and this person appears to be just heading to the fields and isn't going to do that. But I do want to point that out because that is different from the court finding after hearing both sides X, Y, and Z, right? This is Bungie presented its case. This guy fled, and the court said, okay, Bungie, you win. The other thing I would say about this that is at least presenting as put forward in the Twitter thread that I saw and some of the documents that I saw, some concern for me is that what Bungie's really excited about is that they won a piece of the damages as damaging them as a company for personal harassment of their individual. And that's significantly broader than we usually see for harassment claims. And I would have questions, not in this particular case, right? This is abhorrent. This is what we usually say in law school. Bad facts make bad law. Like it's easy to say this guy deserves to get punished and Bungie deserves to win and all these things. That's very easy to say, but it can present bad precedent when we really ask the question, okay, if you harass this community manager, does Bungie get damages? Should Bungie be seen as hurt by the law?
Right.
And I have questions there. So yes, I'm in favor of reductions in harassment. This sounds awful. And I would imagine that this person would lose with a fully presented case. But as the lawyer in the room, I do have to say, okay, I think we should take a pause, both because it's a default judgment and also because I do think there are negative potential ramifications for allowing the corporations to win damages and liability for someone who speaks to their community manager. Like it's pretty easy to see circumstances where that goes a bad direction.
Sure. Good context. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I can give kind of a Bungie context on this because I know the community manager in question. We've been friends for many years. And, the situation has been on the radar for the Bungie community for a while since it happened. It is sort of an older situation and an older community manager as well. Yeah, obviously not very representative of the Destiny community, at least the one that I know. I'll be the first person to knock the Destiny community when they act up, and they sometimes do, but they certainly aren't at the level that this individual appears to have been. I tend to agree with Hoeg that it's not particularly strong legal precedent. Trolls aren't known for their backbones. I don't think many of them would stand up in court and stand by the things that they said or make that case. It would be interesting if they did. I think that would be a good legal precedent, but I think the judge is a little head in the clouds about this having any real long-term impacts. But it is an interesting outlier case, and maybe will serve as a good precedent for the most extreme cases of online trolling, where it is very, very obviously destructive and damaging, and we kind of all agree that this person kind of got what was coming to them, but maybe not, wouldn't contain the nuance of, an in between, which is like sometimes people are begrudged and talk to their community manager in a manner they ought, but their reasoning for being upset is well-founded. Like, for example, if this had happened because the person was upset that they took away the content they paid for when they vaulted all the Destiny content, I think we'd be having a very different conversation. And I don't think Bungie would have gone to court over that. But if they did, for whatever reason, I think it would be much more interesting than what we got now. So it's a unfortunate situation. And if you are a Destiny fan, I don't think you should feel like this brings your community down in any way. And if you are not a Destiny fan, I don't think you should point to this and say, look, I told you Destiny players were bad. This is clearly a mentally unsound. Yeah, I've seen some of that online, right? Like, yeah, typical Bungie player, dead game, yada. And I just want to give a shout out that it's not representative of the community, and every community has these sorts of people. We've got 800 people in chat. One of them might be a guy just like this. I don't know. I
hope not.
I mean, we'll see. I half of them DM me after I post a review, so I'm very familiar with this type of person. I have not received any payment in the amount of $500,000.
And neither has Bungie, by the way.
Bungie's never going to get that money. Yeah,
that's part of the default judgment is that they don't know where this guy is.
Yeah. One of the things I think that was called out, I didn't put it in the notes here, but that was in the article, right? What the case was, what Bungie was presenting, from what they said, is that what they were trying to show is that these online harassment threats, right, can lead to a place of in-person threats, right, in-person damage, where someone can cross that line between just threatening online and actually damage someone personally in person and lead to obviously bigger things in the future.
That's never happened before.
Well, they have to do that because otherwise the First Amendment prevents anything from being accrued against these kinds of things. So it has to be a threat.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were you referring to, Dan?
I mean, this has never happened before. Like somebody online, not necessarily obviously with this, but like, nobody's ever been like, hey, I'm going to, come over to your house,
I'm sure it's happened a lot of times, but
right.
Yeah.
It's just that there's already crews are dealing with it more, right? Like, I've had friends get swatted.
Right.
Me too.
Weird.
Yeah. So I think there's already precedent for like, that has nothing to do with internet trolling, which is just like, if you threaten somebody, you have to be held accountable for making statements that are harmful, demonstrably harmful to a person. But I think what we're talking about is just the general idea of people being dicks online, which I don't think there is precedent for. And I don't think this changes anything. I think this very much past the point of being a toxic commenter. The person was engaging in phone calls and other sort of more traditional harassment behavior that there is an awful lot of legal precedent for. And so I think this was kind of just
stalker law, essentially.
Yeah, you're getting a stalker law and stuff that there's already kind of established cases for. So
Logan with the super chat just now. What's going on, Logan? Posing a question about it.
Yeah, should Bungie shoulder the legal costs for their employees getting harassed online because of their job?
Well, I mean, that's what Bungie's doing here, right? That's Bungie's the plaintiff, and they sue on behalf of their employee. And what Bungie is trying to do is spend money on their own lawyers and on their own time to establish that they're willing to fight for their employees. I mean, like, that's a benefit to Bungie, right? Is that the community folks at Bungie know that the company's got their back. Like, that's what Bungie's trying to do here. The question that I have is, Bungie won a little piece of this for this person was intentionally interfering with contractual relations, which you usually see as kind of corporate espionage. And what they did instead was say that this individual interfered with the contract between the community manager and Bungie, hurting Bungie's ability to get full value from the community manager because they couldn't do their job. And then Bungie gets damages. Is that okay? Because you can see a world in which just kind of strongly worded complaints about, as Travis suggests, vaulting that come in at a high level of volume result in a community manager quitting. Does this kind of legal argument result in those folks complaining about something on a simple basis, owing Bungie some money in the same regard? And I'm not saying that it would, and I'm definitely not saying that it should. But whenever you see legal documents, as a lawyer, I'm always looking at, all right, how can that be used in a way that maybe isn't anticipated?
Yeah, and I think that the difference there would be that, usually when people are mad about vaulting, they don't call somebody's wife and make very traditional unveiled threats in the manner that happened in this case. So that's again why I don't think it is as different as the lawyers were saying it was. It's not particularly.
I don't blame Bungie for tweeting out, "We're proud of this."
Yeah, they should be proud of it. I think it's great, but I don't think it's gonna like pave the way for the model for how to deal with online trolling legally. I just don't think that this is very unique.
And Bungie, since we talk about them enough, and I certainly talk about them in Virtual Legality enough, has a reputation now that's earned of being a litigious company, right? They're going to go and they're going to sue the cheap manufacturers. They're going to sue the people that harass their community managers. And so what they're trying to establish is you better think again before you start screwing with Bungie. And I think they're achieving that.
I think they are too.
Fair enough.
And I don't think that's bad in the battles they're picking. I think Bungie's
No.
being smart about what they pick, right? They're doing things like this is a good case because it's the most extreme example, right? That we know. It's not swatting. That probably would have been worse, but it's still pretty darn nasty. And then the cheaters thing, I mean, and some of the stuff there basically ruining a big portion of their game because of the companies that emerged and profited from cheating at the PvP in that game. Which honestly, if you're at the point where you're cheating at Destiny PvP, I don't know. But I mean, that's like cheating at tic-tac-toe, these guys. So it's a little, yeah. But I think they are picking smart battles and it's good. By the way, they're not the only company that does this. If you have ever been on any PR email in the games industry, you have no doubt received, I don't know, 15 per week emails from Nintendo boasting about who they recently sued and won against. And this is sort of a, you got to stand your ground and defend your IPs, or they may be deemed to a judge as belonging to the community at whole. And so some people really get in your face and love to talk about who they're suing and just sort of build a wall around their stuff and be like, no, we're suing this. That Wii technology is ours. We did that. That's us. You make a bowling game with motion controls and we're on you, whatever. So, yeah. Fair
enough. Well, all right. That's a lot of law today. We had you covered this week, Hoeg. One of the more interesting things I want to jump over to was around Sony's announcement. So with everything going on with the acquisition of Activision, Sony came out and announced this week that they plan to spend over $2 billion, I think it's $2.1 billion, in game research and development with a strong focus on live service, music to Dan's ears. So this will account for over 40% of Sony's overall R&D spending, surpassing its spending in electronics and semiconductor segments. So that was an interesting kind of news item that came out this week about Sony as a company. And then Nikkei, the analyst company, further added that over 50% of Sony's game development spending in the fiscal year ending March 2024, so basically this year, will be on PS5 live service games. And by 2026, 2 years from now, Sony hopes to increase this spending to 60%.
Yeah, just hope some of those live service games survive to spend.
Exactly. On. Exactly right.
They only need one or two, Hoeg. That's their play here. That's my thinking.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for a little while. Yeah, and we've been talking about this for a little while. Like if you looked at, like I've said before, Jim Ryan's presentation, executive level presentation last year on kind of PlayStation as a whole, this was already kind of called out. But seeing these numbers around it and the details here is interesting. And again, we're talking about PlayStation, right, which has a reputation around these single player narrative games, saying that in 2 years' time from now, fiscal year 2026, Sony hopes to increase the spending overall of their budget of 60% on live service games is an interesting play, especially considering, and keep me honest here, as of this moment, we still haven't seen one that's coming anytime soon. We keep hearing about Last of Us factions. We haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Travis has said, and I think he's right, that the show is technically in their live service bucket.
Correct. And we've also seen Marathon, and we know that that's coming soon, which is they're counting that
will
be
one. Yes, and they have announced that Horizon has a multiplayer game coming. The Horizon universe has a multiplayer game coming. But again,
we've actually seen Marathon though, so we have.
Well, we saw a teaser trailer. Come on,
we thought it included gameplay. Yeah.
You're walking a line there. I don't know, but
gameplay footage. I don't know. But
anyway,
did you watch the Vidoc? Anyway,
yes, I did. But I mean, still, it's not like we're seeing players playing in it. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I just find this interesting that we continue to raise the question of, is Sony truly investing in live service to a big degree? And Bungie's acquisition was tied into that. We've talked about that heavily. But when you're talking about 60% of your R&D spending going towards a live service focus, it's a big ass chunk. And I know that Dan is overjoyed at this revelation.
I don't want to talk about it. I mean, it's just stop. This is all your fault.
Maybe they're building. Maybe they're making a Hitman competitor. Dan, your favorite live service game.
Yeah. No. I mean, if
Agent
they're all like
48.
that, then maybe. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
but
Yeah,
I
that
know
got
what
him
they
to
are.
shut up pretty quick.
They're not
Cool.
this.
Well, it
They're
could
not
work.
this.
By the way, and someone funny enough on Hoeg's channel just asked, because I was going to bring this up. I was going to segue this into the rumors that came out this week that they are making a Last of Us 2 remaster.
That's the rest of the budget. 50% live service, 50% Last of Us
Super.
remasters.
Perfect.
Yep.
I'm just
What
glad
do
they got Spider-Man done before this crap, so I'm good.
But here's the thing: Spider-Man
Last
could
of Us
be a
2
live service
remaster.
game, and you'd probably like it. I don't get it. Yeah, Last of Us 2 remastered is wild, man. That's just they're trying to build their entire. I think it's just the show. They're following the money.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, Last of Us 1, with the remake that came out, and the show's success now, and knowing that season 2 has been written and completed in terms of writing. Yeah, I mean, I guess we shouldn't be surprised that they're going to relaunch Last of Us 2 alongside the show, but it does get a little bit exhausting
boring
at some point.
alternative universe you could find. I don't mind. I can see the corporate side of things.
Testament.
Right. Yeah, I think we can see the
I'm not
money.
talking about the game, Travis. I'm saying our universe, this reality.
Oh, I see.
The world in which we get Last of Us remasters in perpetuity from Sony is the most boring of our multiverse of possibilities that we could have imagined. I could be having Dark Cloud 17. Nope. I get Last of Us 2 again.
Well, and we're talking obviously we don't know the details about development right now, right? But I need to see something else from Naughty Dog. You're talking about a premier development studio, some of the best developers in the industry. Thinking that we're wasting years and years on just Last of Us remasters constantly is a little frustrating from a gamer standpoint.
Maybe he's getting mad because didn't the guy just leave Naughty Dog, like the co-founder?
The co-founder and co-president.
Yep. Neil Druckmann's culling is complete.
Yeah, there it is.
He's now king.
Great.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
I think that's his job title.
We'll see what era.
King of
we'll see what that era looks like. Right as you said that, we went to 666 concurrent viewers. So
Dog Despot.
Perfect.
Destiny.
Dog Despot's pretty good. I think his title is just The Last of Us.
Mm-hmm.
The Last of Me.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to change it to The Last of Me. But
yeah,
anyway.
So look, should we talk about live service? I know you guys
go for it.
When
I know you want to.
I mean, we've talked about this a few times. I believe Sony's strategy. I think this is a big thing missing from their portfolio, and they're looking to the future as a company ought. And they're saying, look, this is something we don't do well that is increasingly becoming a large part of the gaming ecosystem, and we need to invest in that and get good at it, because the companies that get good at that stuff, they stand a better chance of being viable in the future as the gaming landscape continues to evolve. I think it's smart for them to do that personally. And I'm somebody who says, yes, I love some live service games, but I do think that not everything needs to be a live service game. And there's probably too many of them. As I fondly said on this show before, live service games are great. Please stop making them. And I stand by that. So I do think Sony has to get good at this. This is something that they need to have in their tool belt. I don't think it needs to be every game. And I don't think that that's what they're doing here. I think this is a play in the future, an investment at it. Hey, let's get good at something that we aren't very good at right now, especially as the industry becomes more entrenched with acquisitions and them, possibly losing some pretty big third-party players that did a lot of stuff that they don't do poorly well, right? Like Overwatch, live service games and whatnot, going over to Activision. So I think that it's a smart play for the future. I think Bungie was a miraculous, masterful acquisition on Sony's part. They got a hell of a deal out of that, and I think that Bungie didn't, but that's neither here nor there. I think that that's going to serve them well in the future as they develop these games. In terms of the quantity of games and how much budget they're spending on it, I think it's really just because you never know what's going to hit. It requires a lot of investment and failed projects to get something like a Fortnite that stands the test of time and really survives. And I think that that's what they're looking for in doing this. They're consulting with Bungie, which is obviously they're experts in the room on this sort of thing. At least the model. I don't think that they are necessarily being looked at as the kings of content or game design, but when it comes to the live service model, they know what they're doing. Yeah, I think this all makes sense. I'm not really surprised. I don't think it's going to be their focus forever, but it's their focus for now, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think they're doing what they need to grow up and evolve as a company and compete in today's games ecosystem, and I think they're going to succeed. Personally, Sony's a good company. They're smart. They know what they're doing.
I agree with you on almost all fronts, and well said. And I think that we have talked about this before. And again, I would remind people, and Dan, this is for you too, that when they did present their strategy around this and their investment level, right, they're increasing their overall investment across the board. So to Travis's point, the investment in kind of what they produce today, what they refer to as the traditional PlayStation game, I believe that's actually in their document, quoted that way. The investment in traditional PlayStation games is actually larger than it was before as well. It's just that they're investing so heavily in gaming that a big portion of it is going towards live service because, as Travis rightly said, it's something they haven't done well. But I don't think it'll detract from the kind of traditional experiences that PlayStation has delivered since early PS4 era, generally speaking. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm more than anything curious. I really love multiplayer games. I talk about it all the time. I'm a competitive guy. I would love to have something on the PS5, right, in the PlayStation ecosystem that is unique and engaging from a competitive multiplayer perspective, because right now there's nothing that interests me to that level. And I would love to turn on my PS5 and play something like that consistently, like I do with a bunch of games on the Xbox side or PC side. So we'll see what they deliver. I'm hopeful.
Even the Switch has got, I think, more successful live service games than
You're probably right.
PlayStation.
Mario Kart 8,
Splatoon and Mario Kart 8 is kind of a live service, but they don't call it that. They don't work it that way. But Splatoon definitely is, I would describe as a live service game. I wanted to address one thing in the comments where Guybrush was saying, for most genres, he sees 1 to 2 live service games dominating. The rest are fleeting and doomed to fail. I do think that's an unfair characterization of live service games. You can run a live service game and have it be extremely successful and profitable for your company, and then also end at some point, right? Not everyone is going to have the same never-ending tail as Fortnite, and that's fine, right? Like PUBG had its huge explosion and then eventually kind of faded into obscurity. That's
PUBG
how I
still makes multiple billions per year, you know.
They still do, and they also still succeeded very well. And that's my point, right? Is that, nobody's buying God of War 2018 right now, right? But that doesn't mean it's a failed game. It just means that it was successful and then people moved on. That's not a bad thing. Knockout City, a very small game made by a small studio, Velen Studios, they had 12, 13 seasons or whatever it was, and they sailed into the sunset. People will characterize that as a failed live service game because it didn't last forever. That's crazy. That's not the way it works.
Here's the thing, though. The problem with that is people that were invested in it they invested all that money that about skins or whatever it is. Now that all that crap is gone, like you just threw money away. I mean, that sucks for the consumer, or Destiny. Like when you talk about it, them vaulting stuff. That's the kind of stuff that turns me off of live service games. Also, I suck at any kind of multiplayer. Generally,
so Dan, this is not an issue that is exclusive to live service games. Anytime you buy something in a multiplayer game and they turn the servers off, you lose all of the digital goods that you lose access to the digital goods that you bought. And so live service is, if you're spending your money in a game that is server based and you have to cope with the possibility of one day that game not being online, that's part of the risk you're running, buddy. And I don't think that's new to live service at all. It's just that's how online games work. For games like Destiny, it hurts a little bit more because Destiny is a game that can be played as single player, and there's not really a need for like a whole bunch of people to be logged on to keep it going. And so it hurts extra hard when it's like a single player game, and they're removing single player content that you could just enjoy alone from the game. So it's it hits a little harder in that regard.
Hitman will eventually be offline. I mean, then
it's a single player game, right?
Yeah, I'm 100% aware. But the problem I have with it is, I mean, it's mostly due to the fact that I suck. But I just it sucks for those other people that play these games constantly. But then you have games like Call of Duty that are just put out a new iteration every year, and
Yeah.
continue.
But I do
So,
like.
so what's the difference though, right?
Yeah,
If
I mean,
it's
really,
a game every year with Call of Duty, and then eventually the
sucks.
old servers get shut off, or
just make single player games, everybody, and we'll be good.
Yeah, that's
But I do like live service
close-minded view.
elements. I mean, I'm excited about Diablo seasons.
Yeah, me too.
Yes.
Because I think
too.
they're putting resources into it. I think it could be really cool.
Yes.
Yeah, and the reason that Diablo is successful is not just because they made a great game, but they also invested and believed in their product enough to actually create dedicated teams to work on seasonal content before the game came out, which is why we're getting a new season next week, right? Because they were already ready, and it draws an even more like finer point on high profile failures like Halo Infinite, a franchise that had to succeed because it's Xbox's flagship product, and they still didn't believe in it enough to hire full-time employees or dedicate teams to seasonal content before the game was already out, which is flabbergasting and shows how hard this stuff is and how even large companies with lots of resources and talent and knowledge still are figuring out this thing because it's all very new. And unless you have a Bungie in your back pocket like Sony, it's super hard to navigate and prepare for. And so I'll be interested to see, of these 12 games that they launch, how many of them are going to launch with a seasonal plan in motion before the game comes out. Because if you don't do that, you're just kind of throwing crap on the wall and seeing what sticks, and something doesn't work out, or worse yet, it works out, but then you can't deliver content fast enough for players to stick with the game. That's pretty brutal. And so I think a lot is going to go into how much they actually invest in these games and actually give them a chance versus.
I just like to see breadth, right? I want to make sure that all this money and these multiple projects aren't just an extraction shooter and a battle royale game and whatnot. I like to see the live service kind of grafted onto the Diablos of the world. Show me some breadth, do some weird stuff, PlayStation. I'll play your live service games, but make sure that the underlying game is something interesting that I want to play.
Exactly. I think what a lot of people think of live service games, they think of battle royale like Fortnite, and they go, "Oh, that's not my thing." But that's why I always have to point out to Dan that Hitman's a live service, that Fall Guys is a live service, and like all this stuff is because live service games can encompass a lot. And I would really hate to see them get pigeonholed into one type of game, because I also am not really into battle royales, guys. Like, I don't play Fortnite at all. I've never touched Warzone. I'm not really. Naraka Blade Point is the one I've messed around with because it's kind of more my ish. But I would love to see live service games not have one specific category that they work for. But again, I'm also on team single player games are okay too. I'm very excited for Starfield, single player game, no live service elements. They're going with expansions every once in a while.
No live service element yet.
I don't think it will have one. Remnant 2 is another game that the early hours were pretty enjoyable, and that is not a live service game. It is going kind of the Outriders model of just releasing maybe expansions.
Well, you just played Dave the Diver too, even a smaller kind of example there.
It actually surprises me, Travis, because I would have assumed Remnant might have, just the way you describe it, right? Different realms and all these branches, that it would be great for supporting live services if they wanted to.
It would be great for a live service game. It's absolutely like set up to do it. My guess is, well, two things. One, I've just heard internally from that studio that they're not super into the live service game, and I'm a big fan of creators making their own decisions. But also, they are a smaller studio. Live service is basically something you have to do with a big team, unless your game doesn't require a ton of resources to keep up and running, like Among Us or Fall Guys, where you can get by with content creation with a smaller group of people. A game like Remnant 2, I imagine, would take an enormous team to keep new and engaging content coming out, and I don't think they have the resources to do that. I think when Remnant 2 started production, it had like 30 developers. It's a much smaller team. So
yeah. But I think that's a fair point to call out. Is I think you're right, Travis, and I'm guilty of this as well, which is you hear live service and your mind kind of immediately goes to competitive multiplayer, and that doesn't have to be the case.
True.
That's not necessarily the total breadth of live service, and I agree with you, Hoeg, that it would be nice to. I hope that's what PlayStation is doing, right? Is looking across their IP catalog, looking across where there's market gaps or maybe opportunities, and trying to find some new wrinkles to live service that we haven't seen before. I would love that. So
like Monster Hunter, I think
damn it.
Well, I know you don't like Monster Hunter, but I think Monster Hunter World, like that would be perfect for the Horizon Zero Dawn universe. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
a world where you're hunting giant
you're right.
robots and
You're
they
right.
can add on to that as they go. And I think people would go bananas for that. And it's something we haven't seen a whole lot of yet. So
You probably didn't notice, but Elu and I have a long running joke where he loves Monster Hunter. I don't like it. We talk about it. It's a long running joke. And just not 5 minutes ago in chat said, Ains, do you have a Monster Hunter reference coming? And I said, absolutely not. So
all right, well, I got
that,
us there. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Damn.
I got you covered, Elu. Remnant 2 Bros. Monster Hunter World is super good.
That's pretty good, Travis, because I have to tell you, when the announcements came out, it's like Guerrilla's working on weird Horizon stuff forever. I'm like, well, I like Horizon, but I wish they weren't just making weird Horizon stuff forever. You saying, well, the multiplayer Horizon could be like Monster Hunter, one, immediately makes sense. And then two, is more exciting than my first thought, which is a dumb kind of battle royale in a Horizon
multiplayer
world.
type thing. Yeah,
that
exactly.
would suck, and it would not play to the strengths of like fighting big beasts. I feel like they're primed for a Monster Hunter World type game, and I hope that's the direction they go. It would also be cool if they distinguish themselves from Monster Hunter World by making it a single player game like a Hitman style, where it was more about competing with the community and seeing how fast you can do it, what tricks you can pull off. I'm all for multiplayer, but if that's not their strengths, they could even do a single player live service game where they're just adding different robots for you to fight. And I think that would go off really well, honestly.
Yeah.
The question is, can the team deliver that type of content at a fast enough clip to keep the community engaged? And that's the big one with that, because I imagine creating a new monster in Horizon series takes a ton of work and an enormous team. And I don't know if that's the type of content you could easily pump out for a seasonal live service model. But I don't know. It's interesting. I'm interested to see what PlayStation does. And I think that they're going to have at least some successes. Undoubtedly, there will have some failures too. And that should be exciting to everybody who likes new stuff, because they're trying new things. And that's
great.
Cool. It's not them making a remaster of The Last of Us 2 2 years after it comes out or whatever. So I would say if you're simultaneously hating on the remake stuff they're doing and hating on the new stuff that they're telling you they're planning, pick a lane, buddy. Hate one of them more than the other, at least.
Very fair.
I'm always happy to see investment in video gaming.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we always say the industry has grown big enough to where there's something for you no matter what you like at this point. So in fact, I mean, generally speaking, there's more than we can even play. So,
and for a whole bunch of different things to succeed. Live service games succeeding does not mean fewer single player games. It just means the PlayStation becomes a bigger company with more studios and they do more stuff. But I don't think anywhere in their messaging has said we're divesting from single player games. Like, that is just not, they're not going to give up ground, right? They have this area that they're just crushing it in, and they want to expand on that success. They don't want to take away that success and gamble it on something else. That's not what they're doing. So
100%.
I think the fear, and it's one that I share a little bit, is that if you do find yourself with Fortnite, then the ROI demands that you invest more in that Fortnite, whatever it is. And I'm just using that as an example. And so if your Ghost of Tsushimas or your God of War Ragnaroks are nice, but they make 1/20th of the money that your Fortnite makes, then we could get into trouble. And to some extent, that's a fear that's born by just acknowledging how successful these things can be.
Yeah.
And that's not fair for the corporations who say, yeah, okay, that level of success would be great. But for people that like Final Fantasy or Dave the Diver or whatever coming out and playing those types of games, to see them just swamped by potential successes of war zones or whatever is, I think, nerve-wracking, right? And that's normal kind of worry about change, but I think that's some of what you get.
My rebuttal to that would be that I think if Sony had a Fortnite, they would invest a ton of money into it, and I don't think that any of their existing studios would be a good fit for that one. So I think they'd probably have to hire from outside to make that a thing, and I think that they would use that as their money maker, right? And then they would have their prestige studios making single player games, because that provides a different type of portfolio and a different type of PR, right? You probably aren't winning Game of the Year with a Fortnite game, no matter how good it is, because it's not that sort of prestige type game. And I think Sony
that
wants
point,
to...
Travis, PlayStation is more of a walled garden to begin with, right?
They have that
reputation.
And they have their reputation of just making like really high quality stuff. And I think that they want to retain that reputation. So my guess would be that Fortnite would become a bank to spend on other prestige projects. So it might have the reverse effect. So, they might have more money to play with to do more kind of stuff like that. Even if it's less profitable, they have reputational benefits within the industry. They have a totally different workforce that is interested in making those games and probably not live service games. And they, that I've heard in like movies, some directors say you do one for them and one for yourself, right? Where it's reference to you making a movie that you think is going to make a lot of money for the studio, and then you make one that you actually like, and it's not as successful, but they kind of fund each other, right? And I think that there's some of that going on in the games industry. And I think a live service game could be hugely beneficial to Sony, to them to make even more single player games. So I think it could just as easily result in the exact opposite of what people are afraid of, which is them having more opportunities to make cool stuff that they actually would care about. And in that case, you should love the Fortnite of PlayStation if you like single player Fortnite games, because I think it would actually help your game exist.
I think you guys just pointed out the very positive route and the very negative route, and it could be anywhere in between.
It could be anywhere in between, and I'm just offering the alternate. And I think Hoeg makes a very good point that it could happen. 100%.
It could happen for sure.
And it would make everybody who is a PlayStation fan feel like they had betrayed their roots and done some stuff. And also, I don't think would make sense, because you don't typically move away from something you're good at. You just add on other things that you want to be good at. And I think that's what Sony's doing. But I get where he's
going. Where's my Colony Wars then, Travis?
I mean, maybe the Fortnite of PlayStation will fund that. Wouldn't that be great if they if they could take a risk on that, because they have this money maker and they're like, hey, look, this game's going to pay the bills. Creatives go out there and
Epic
find new stuff.
Shown that level of aggression with their Fortnite money. And I think it's a perfectly valid way to look at the world. I think the concern that I have with the Sony is that right now the institutional will seems to be to make Last of Us Part 2 again. And so my concern is you give that company a lot more money, you don't necessarily see that breadth of positivity and positive uses that you have pitched to me. So I think it's a concern of both the institutional
I get it.
character and what live services might mean. But I would love to see Sony succeed. I would love to see everybody have a Fortnite where they're just making a lot of money, and that gaming is proving to be a good use of investment funds, because that gets you more and better games. But I think people's concerns are legitimate. And so when you say something like, it doesn't have to mean that these resources are spent over here and that you're losing your game, to some extent, I agree with you. But on the other side of the coin, if Guerrilla is making a multiplayer Horizon, they aren't making Horizon 3.
Well, their team could grow and they could be making both. Yeah. So I think probably studios are doing that and working on multiple projects. And I don't know that a lot of people working on traditional open world Guerrilla games are interested in making a multiplayer game, or that's even their skill set. So they're either firing a whole bunch of people that were really good at what they did, or they're just adding new people to their team. And I would guess it's the latter. Another interpretation of them making remasters of old games is that perhaps they don't have the war chest that they feel like they can take creative risks, right? Maybe they're doing what they feel is easy and what they know will be profitable because they've got massively successful games that they just want to milk. And perhaps if they had a war chest, if they had a Fortnite, then they could be a little crazy like Epic is doing, and they could try other stuff because they are less risk averse than a company that knows that they're only 3 failures away from going bankrupt, right? 3 high profile failures. And I feel like some of these games companies are worried about that a lot. And so, you're completely valid in your worry. I would temper some of that worry with maybe a little pepper of optimism in there, and say that maybe this could actually be a good thing for their company if it works out. And I tend to be on that side.
It's a bit of devil's advocacy from me. I don't really have a problem with them spending on live services.
Cool. Yeah. That's good to know.
Yeah. It'll be one way or another, no matter what. It's going to be interesting to see what they do, right? And see what they produce and do what they produce and develop, and where it lands and how the audience reacts to it. So I'm looking forward to talking about that. I guess a perfect segue then to the last topic I wanted to talk about today, which is Electronic Arts, because they are focused on single player games, shockingly. So this week they announced the opening of Cliffhanger Games, a new studio which is going to be dedicated to creating a Black Panther game. So some of the details about this, industry veterans in that studio. I know we have the details up on our site, of course, but run by Kevin Stevens from Monolith. And they have developers and veterans from franchises Halo, God of War, Call of Duty, Shadow of Mordor, etc., working on Black Panther. It's an original third-person single-player Black Panther game in collaboration with Marvel. So the actual quote he gave, Stevens offered this press statement. He said, "We're dedicated to delivering fans a definitive and authentic Black Panther experience, giving them more agency and control over their narrative than they have ever experienced in a story-driven game." Weird statement there. But Wakanda is a rich superhero sandbox, and our mission is to develop an epic world for players who love Black Panther and want to explore the world of Wakanda as much as we do.
So is that different from Black Panther and Captain America Fight in World War II? That was like a really brief teaser we saw a little while back, right?
That's from Amy Hennig, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. Please correct me, someone. But I believe Amy Hennig's team is working on a kind of crossover Marvel game in those universes. Yes, so that's coming as well. And don't forget, the reason I said EA at the start is Motive, right? Is also making the Iron Man game. So there's multiple superhero games coming in different facets from this group, and also relating to EA, right? Is Immortals of Avium is an EA original. They're publishing that for the developer as well. So all single player focused games. And I'm not one for superhero games personally, but obviously there are a lot of people that are. So I hope they deliver some really good experiences here in Iron Man and Black Panther.
I mean, Spider-Man's great, so sure, hit me.
Yeah. I mean,
Dan news just for you, sir.
Yeah, it could be good. It's Motive did what they do, like Battlefront, or not Battlefront? Is it Battlefront 2?
No, they did Squadrons.
Yeah, Motive did Squadrons, which is one of the more overrated games from my perspective. But they also did the remake for Dead Space, right?
Yeah.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Well, they got the flying down, so Iron Man might be good. I don't know. Who knows, man?
Well, the rumor is too that Dead Space 2 is beginning to be worked on, right? So as a remake, which I hope, because Dead Space remake was brilliant. So I hope so.
Buy everything old again, folks.
Yeah.
1 and 2. They can leave 3. Just do 2. Just do 2.
I'm not a huge. Well, I think they should do 3 again. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of remakes, and I'm also not a huge fan of licensed Marvel stuff. I like Spider-Man as much as the next guy. I think that Square Enix's Guardians of the Galaxy is super underrated.
That was my favorite game of that year.
That was a great game that year. I can't remember what my favorite game that was that year, but I'm sure it was a good one. Yeah, I would love to. I would love to see new ideas, but I get it.
Agree.
Licensed are a big thing right now, and
well, that's why I said Immortals of Avium, right? That's a new idea that they are publishing, and supported, which I like.
Okay.
Now wait a minute. I'm all for disagreeing, Travis, but Ains is exactly correct. Immortals of Avium is a new weird thing they're trying.
Oh, 100%. No, he said I liked that. That was the part I Larry Davided at him about.
We're gonna have a weekly Larry David impression at this point. Is that?
I really hope.
I think we have to grant him that Immortals of Avium is weird and different.
It is definitely weird and different.
EA originals have been good at being weird and different. I really liked a game from a while back called Lost in Random. I thought that was fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was where It Takes Two came from in terms of their publishing. I think was EA.
Yep.
I think you're right. Yes.
Correct.
Yep. And of course, the end game here is assuming Black Panther and Iron Man do well, which assuming they're good games, I'm sure they will, given the licensing. Eventually we can get our Anthem 2. Right?
I think EXO Primal might be Anthem 2. Have you played EXO Primal at all?
Right. Only briefly in the demo. I haven't played.
Those rigs look like Anthem.
They do. Sadly,
it's play Armored Core. You got that this year, Ants?
I do. Actually, yes, I'm very excited about that.
There you go.
Which we joked about last week. You couldn't believe was actually coming out next month. That's only a month away.
I still can't believe it's coming out. I do not know how they developed that game while they're making Elden Ring. That seems crazy to me. But yeah, I'm excited for that. Anthem is not going to come back though, Ains, and nor should it.
You shut your mouth.
The concepts of Anthem might, but the name is absolute cancer, I think.
You're probably right. Yeah, it's a shame.
I wonder if Motive is using some of, the Anthem flying mechanics
from Frostbite.
Yeah, from Frostbite.
I think they're using Unreal, I believe, for Iron Man. I don't know if they announced that. I have to look, but yeah,
that was the best part of it. I mean,
yeah, pretty much.
Amazing.
But it is kind of funny. I think many people have talked about this too. But there was a few years back where we were talking about EA as kind of like falling apart in terms of what they were delivering. And here, generally speaking, it seems they've turned a corner in delivery. Obviously, Battlefield 1942 aside, or not 2042, excuse me.
1942.
That was the original game. Yeah.
To Travis's credit, EA is doing what he said that Sony could do, which is that they're taking things like The Sims and making that a full live service game, running their bank account off of games like that, and then saying,
and
FIFA, let's make some random single player games.
Yeah, FIFA, Madden, they're money makers, man. And then make some other games, license some games, make some other stuff.
We got breaking news in the chat here. Looks like Jim Ryan is here, and he's working on a big deal with EA. All right,
Jim Ryan's here. What's up, Jim?
Hell yeah,
how you doing, buddy?
That's definitely what Jim Ryan does on his off hours. He comes in with gaming Bitcast
with a misaligned PlayStation logo. Actually, that makes me think it may be him. The misaligned logo. How are your cats doing, Jim?
It's cropped. It's what are you gonna do?
By the way, that's the original PlayStation logo, and I don't know if Jim even knows that one, to be honest with you. He probably doesn't know what that is, so that's probably not.
Called him out for not being a OG gamer. This is what they do at Seasoned Gaming. If you aren't seasoned enough, they choose their seasoning as salt, and they use it against you.
Oh, okay, all right.
You got it? You see that?
I see that. Let me ask you directly then. Do you believe Jim Ryan was a hardcore PlayStation 1 gamer?
Definitely not. I'm just saying, why is that a bad thing?
It's not a bad thing. It's just
not a bad thing. I know lots of people that weren't hardcore PlayStation 1 gamers. They're not.
Jim Ryan has a flipped over PlayStation 1 that he plays today
with a towel.
With a towel. It's good.
It's good stuff. Oh man, good to see you, Jim. Glad you're here.
Because you're older, can I ask you a question? What was up with those things that were supposed to fix your scratched CDs that never worked? Do you remember those?
Yeah, they did.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Did they work? I remember I paid Game Crazy. Remember Hollywood Videos? GameSpot, whatever. I paid Game Crazy $2 or whatever they charged to run my game through one of those, and I just remember apparently it just rips the film off of your CD and made it not run or whatever. But I never was able to get those successfully work. Did those work?
From what I understand, all it was supposed to do was add a little filler in the scratches, right? So it could be read properly as
that's the handheld ones you're talking about, right?
No,
they have those giant. No, they have those machines.
They put it in and it did it. Yeah. I remember that, and then my game still didn't run, and they were like,
a lot of game shops, similar to GameStop, but the I guess the more the privately owned ones have those kind of machines where they can do 40 of those games because they get a bunch of trade-ins and they just run it through and it repolishes and everything. I mean, they're $4,000 to $6,000 machines though.
But they work, right?
What?
They work. They work. They work.
They work.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, my recollection is that what worked for me is that I had a little squeeze bottle of stuff.
Yes.
And you just rub it into the CD.
Exactly.
Crank.
Yeah. The $15 kit that you could buy to keep it home.
And they work sometimes. Okay. Once in a while.
Yeah, I didn't have a good experience with that, and I was wondering if it was just some pseudoscience, we could totally fix it. Nah.
Hey, I bought one physical disc this year, and it didn't work, so I'm over it.
I read about that, yeah. So I think you're on team digital only alongside me, Hoeg. So
I'm with you there.
I'm very excited to watch the Ainses of the world, slowly fade into obscurity. Very good, man.
Yeah.
It's been happening for a while, my friend.
Enjoy your empty Starfield Steelbook, my dude.
Actually, that's all I want. I prefer the Steelbook over the disc.
I know, yeah. You don't even want the disc. You just want the book, man. You don't need the.
No, there is a disc. They did say they're shipping it.
Oh no, there's no disc.
No. In the regular edition, there's a disc.
Oh yeah, there was that flurry of news articles after the Ultimate said there was no disc that maybe they're not releasing it physically, right? Because Alan Wake isn't being released physically.
Yeah, that's a big one,
So,
actually. Yeah.
Like that moment in time is coming. People know
It is.
that, but it's not
think so.
Starfield. Starfield is not going to be
Yeah.
digital.
Basically,
anymore.
a support rep said it wasn't coming with a disc, and sites ran with it thinking it was all
I
Starfield.
want to respond to a comment that somebody's saying somewhere a video game's preservationist is screaming, physical discs do not preserve the game. I have to say this every time it comes up. They have all the same disadvantages in terms of preservation as digital copies. Stop saying that, everyone.
Well, from the newer generations.
Correct.
The old ones.
Yeah.
Correct.
He's referring to the ones where you basically download the game anyway. You're just putting a key in.
Which is all games today. So saying that going forward,
no, it's not all. It's like 99%. Calm down.
Exactly. So my point is that you don't. And then people also say this. They say, is buying a digital game more like long time expensive renting? Yes, because of digital rights management or DRM, but importantly, so is buying a disc. It has the exact same policy. You still don't own the game. You are still technically renting it. They could still technically take it away from you at any point in time. That's how it works. When
you basically always were, by the way, folks. It's just they always have mechanisms to remove it. Folks that ask me this in virtual legality, I often point to like there used to be printing on the disc itself that said it's subject to the license in the instruction book, that kind of thing. And you never noticed it because you never cared when you were younger, or you probably don't care now. But like that's always said, hey, look, by the way, you purchasing a copy of Resident Evil doesn't give you the intellectual property rights to the Resident Evil franchise. You know that intrinsically, but at a basis of playing the video game, it means that if we had some way to rip it off your disc, we could. And that's what the current reality is they do have some way to take those things down. And so you always only have a license based on the terms of what you've agreed to for the game that you're playing. $70 doesn't buy you all the intellectual property.
Basically, what the disc does today is
illusion of ownership. That's the
idea, but it does give you a resellable key. Essentially, you can't resell a digital key. You can resell a disc.
True, and I think they are trying to solve that problem of how
they are. They will, and they will, right?
Xbox tried to solve it, and then they got slapped in the face for even proposing it, which I think is hilarious in retrospect. But I think eventually that day will probably come. That is a disadvantage of the digital. But I would say everything else, they pretty much have parity, especially in terms of game preservation. They have identical parity.
Modern game preservation.
Modern for the past 15 years or however long it's been. So yeah.
Right. By the way, Jim Ryan has told us in Hoeg's chat here that Spider-Man 2 will win Game of the Year. I'm sorry, Jim. It's not going to happen, my friend.
Well, he's betting his 2023 Audi A6 that Spider-Man will win Game of the Year.
Yeah,
I like the idea that because he's Jim Ryan, he knows what's going to win Game of the Year. I love that assertion because I mean that's something I would expect Jim Ryan to say, but he doesn't have any influence over that. You know what I mean? Like,
he hasn't played it.
I know. I'm in the industry. We've already made this decision. Okay, like we decided it's Game of the Year already. You guys just don't know. I'm in the circle.
Yeah. All right, boys. I think that's going to wrap us up for today. It's been an amazing show. Chat, you have been awesome today. Jim, thanks for stopping by, my friend. Sean was better. Sean was better, but it's okay. You're doing fine.
For the records, Ains is not convinced that Jim Ryan is in my chat, by the way. He's playing along.
Just to be clear, yes. Yeah. But no, great show. Like I said, chat, you've been awesome. Both sides of the house. Everyone joining us today. If you're listening to this later or listening on the audio side, thank you so much as always. This week, as we already said earlier, both IGN from Travis and our review from Elu of Remnant 2 will be up on Thursday. So please check those out. And, the early impressions that we gave should hopefully get people excited. And hopefully the full game will be, deliver like the early game does. On the SG side as well, I talked last week, I know, about putting up the review video of the Odyssey Maxwell headset. I changed out, they have these replaceable ear cups, so I actually waited till I got these to use them. I'm going to put those in the review. That'll be up early this week as well. On the video side, we also did a cast co-op this week, me, Joe, and Luke. That's up on the channel. And then lastly, I should be doing a write-up of Synapse this week as well on the VR side. So keep an eye for that. Hoeg, I'll go to you first this week. What do you want to shout out, man?
Sure. Well, obviously, if the deal closes, we're going to do a virtual legality. If it doesn't, I'm still intending to do some virtual legalities. probably at a lesser clip than I was doing before. It takes a lot more effort. It takes a lot longer to get one of these done right now, but I'd like to continue to do those videos in the space. We have Lawyers and Dragons on Saturdays. We just did one yesterday. We have one next week. So if you like Dungeons and Dragons and you like lawyers, I don't know what's wrong with you on the second part, but come check it out with us. We play tabletop role-playing games, and especially one of my buddies likes to lawyer every single rule. So we'll see what happens next week, because things got pretty crazy yesterday. If you like any of those things, if you're interested in the deal, we'll be talking about it more. Come check it out at Hoeglaw on YouTube.
Thank you, sir. Sorry, one thing I forgot real quick, too. Shout out to Mr. Mariano Pampa, my Halo partner in crime here. He donated 5 channel memberships on the Season Gaming side. So thank you very much for that. Super generous. I missed that because that does not pop up over on our side here. I always forget to call it out. The other thing he reminded me of is I am doing a Halo community stream either tomorrow, Monday night, or Tuesday night with some of the bigger Halo players in the community. I haven't streamed in a while, but it should be a really good time. Good players, you know, just laughs and fun. So I'll tweet out about that as well if you're interested. All right. Travis, what you got, man?
One sec, I'm messaging Hoeg to see if I can talk about something. Yeah. So yeah, you can read my review or watch the video review on IGN.com for Remnant 2. Also, if you want to see a game you should not play, my review of Testament is live right now. And then I've got some games that I previewed recently that are going to be coming out soonish, I think. One of them that I'm excited to talk about is Blasphemous 2, which I went in person and played with the developers themselves. I apparently this isn't a humble brag. I just am telling you it because I think it's kind of fun.
It's a humble brag. I can hear it
not
coming. I can hear it coming.
When I brag, I own it. I never humble about it. All right, I'm just like, I'm the best. I'm the best. No one can beat me. Which is that apparently that day they had demoed the game a bunch with a bunch of different outlets and people that came to play, and nobody got even like very far at all because they were just doing like, you know, play until you die or whatever. And I got not only all of the 3 weapons, but I got to one of the boss fights, which you can do in any order. And apparently I picked like the hardest one. So I didn't realize it, but when I was playing the demo, their entire team got behind me and they were recording me because they were just like very excited. Like there was energy in the room and I was completely oblivious to it because I was, you know, wearing a headset and focusing on the game. And I got to the final phase of this 3-phase boss fight on my first run. And then when I finally got killed, I like threw my hands in the air all upset and I turned around and they were all laughing. And it was
That's awesome.
It was kind of a fun little moment with that team. So it was cool to just see that come together. So I'll have a preview on that sometime in the near future. I don't know when, but I'll be able to talk about it. Yeah. And then I'm also doing this show next weekend on Saturday called Lawyers and Dragons. I know nothing about it. Never heard of it. Don't know anybody who's involved in it, but you know, they said they needed they needed a guest who rolls some dice and knows a thing or two about tabletop role-playing games, and I'm going to show up and see what happens. I've no idea. So
I can't believe you got invited to that. I can't believe you're going.
Who indeed? Who invited me to that? So yeah, I'm gonna be there next Saturday, and I don't know what to expect. I've not watched the show. I guess I should preface that as I don't know where they're at in the campaign. So
he's always a big supporter, Hoeg.
Yeah. Look. We all have love Hoeg
time on our weekend.
Exactly. Thank you. I'm sorry. I really wish I had time to catch up, but it's on my list. But the good news is I will in character also not know. So really, aren't I just method acting here? You know, I don't want to know anything that my character shouldn't know. So
fair enough.
So this is the process, guys.
You're the guy that only asked for the pages of the script with his lines on it.
Yeah, exactly. What does my character know about? I don't want to see anything.
It should be a great time. Definitely make time to stop by and say hi to you guys. It'll be fun. So
we'll have some fun.
No doubt. Well, again, everyone, you've been awesome today. It's been a fun show, guys. Thank you. Everyone, have a good week gaming. We will be back next Sunday and, of course, next Saturday. Make sure you check out Lawyers and Dragons with these fine fellows. And we will see you then. Take care. Have a good week.